What does it take to make a fun game? Is Mr. Cloak fun to play so far? I think we need playtesters to make sure. But we first need some fun levels before that. What makes a fun level? Oh, I know. I'll call Professor Pete. No.
Annoying game dev. Annoying game dev.
Ugh. You've got Professor Pete. Go. Professor Pete, are you able to teach us how to make levels for our stealth game? We need your help. If I promise to help you, will you stop calling me? Okay. So your game probably has a bunch of different game mechanics in it to make it fun. But we don't want to introduce everything all at once to players and overwhelm them. So the first step is to introduce the core mechanics of your game in the first level or the first few levels. Then you need to choose a logical order to keep introducing new game mechanics as the levels progress. And finally, in the later levels, you need to find which game mechanics complement one another and combine them to make super fun levels. Once you've determined the order of how to introduce the game mechanics in your levels, we now need to sketch out the levels themselves. But don't just try to hop straight into your level editor and perfect these levels on the first try. I'm old school, and I like the paper and pencil method to help me simplify this process and help me focus on the overall process of designing the level and what will make it fun for the player, instead of all the little details that get introduced when you actually start building the level out in the level editor. After you've detailed the levels out in the editor, like you did in your sketch, it's now time for you to be your first playtester. Look for areas that might be too difficult or confusing and keep making tweaks to the level until you feel good about it. You won't catch everything, but that's okay. The actual playtesters will help give you actual outside perspectives on what works and what didn't, and will help you uncover aspects of your game and level design that you hadn't noticed before. The final step is the hardest part though, getting playtesters. You don't have any friends, do you? Hey, I have friends. Huh, interesting. That surprised me. Anyway, invite those friends and the people in your Discord to play the game. Then, take their feedback and run with it. Okay, now I have to go. Wait, Professor Pete, will you be one of my playtesters? As if. Later, punk. Oh yeah, and subscribe to this loser. He paid me $50 to tell you that. You weren't supposed to tell him that. One big thing that's unique about Mr. Cloak is the choose your own adventure exploration mechanic that we've implemented. Think of a Mario overworld. Except, now make it Mr. Cloak. And instead of the overworld being linear, you actually start in the middle of the entire map. Every level you have has multiple exits, each which lead to their own unique levels for you to play. Eventually, you'll branch out from the starting area, and will travel into new, unique worlds the farther out you go. Your end goal is to escape the labyrinth you're stuck in through one of the 5 exit points on the edges of the map, while uncovering the secrets of the labyrinth as you go. Without spoiling anything, your next goal is going to be to map out the entire labyrinth, and as you do so, some very cool things will happen in the story. Anyway, now that we have our game plan for the level design, let's get to work. I had a few busy weeks ahead of me with fun trips with friends, but I managed to fit in level design even while I was on the road, and actually created the first few levels of the game on the beach. This first level was super fun to make, so let me walk y'all through how I designed it. For the very first level, I'm stripping out everything but the very base mechanics. Just campfires, torches, and henchmen, to teach players the basics of gameplay. The first room gives players an easily avoidable obstacle of 2 campfires right in the middle. This allows them time to experiment with staying in the light too long and seeing what happens if they do. This will allow them to learn the basic rule of the game: stay out of the light or you'll get chased. This next part requires weaving through a few torches, and then you'll come to a crossroads. If you choose to go up, you'll see a door that you aren't able to enter yet, and the level will let you know you'll need a key to open this door. This will then cause the players to go down the other path in the hallway and come across an obstacle: the first unavoidable light. Handily, a previous adventurer before you has left a note letting you know that you can press Z on the keyboard to roll, which will allow you to roll through the light quick enough to not alert the guards of your presence. You're now in the room where the key lies. Navigate around the light sources, grab the key, and make your way back to the exit door. Sketching out these levels was a ton of fun, and didn't take a ton of time to think up some fun concepts for the first few levels. However, building out these levels in Unity turned out to be another beast. I very quickly found a lot of bugs, game design mechanics that needed to be tweaked, and small features that needed to be added before I could release the playtest to Steam for people to play. So, time to rapid fire everything we fixed/added to make the game much more polished. Here we go. Lighthouse fixes, both refactoring code and fixing animations. Light turret bullets sometimes bounce off the walls weird like this, so now they don't anymore. Creating the UI for the time you've been in the light. We'll improve this indicator in the future, but this is a good start for now. Different door tiles for exiting levels. Sideways doors looked weird, so I cut them. And here's a few tile combinations I didn't even realize were missing until I started making levels, so I'd filled in the rest of the tile set. Door cutscene. Death cutscene. Letters, to learn about the lore of the labyrinth, left by previous adventurers. Some are helpful, some are funny, and some just talk about the history of the labyrinth. In the last video, I said how flashlight guy movement looks bad because of their delayed turns, and sometimes they do this weird whip around thing. But that's fully fixed now. Turns out, I forgot to add idle looking up and down animation states for flashlight guys. So anytime they weren't moving, they'd default to their idle left or right states, which is why they'd whip around sometimes when changing directions. And last but not least, a small but necessary feature we added in was the pause menu. All these features were great additions, but the one I was most excited for was something that Martin worked on, which was the overworld. This is such a cool and unique part of Mr. Cloak, so having this in was awesome. He did a great job. Also, when you run over to select the level you want to play, he added in a really cool animation where the level name pops up as you load into the level. Also, last video I got a bunch of great comments giving me ideas for how I could optimize light raycasts, because currently all lights are firing their raycast constantly, which means for older computers this could affect performance. So, after reading through all these comments, thank you Captain UFO for the great idea. Now, all light raycasts are only active when Mr. Cloak is within a collider I've set for the different light types, making only light raycasts active when they're near Mr. Cloak. This was a great optimization to make for the game. Also, leave comments with any ideas you have for levels, enemies, or anything else in Mr. Cloak. I read every single one. Alright, now back to level design. So really quick, like I said, most of the levels in this game have multiple exits, and based off which exit you reach, you'll unlock a unique level. But this is a bit of a double-edged sword. As it makes each level's replayability value higher, the levels themselves also need to be enjoyable. Otherwise, we run the risk of players being stuck in levels they didn't enjoy the first time around, having to replay the level multiple times to try to find all the exits. After the first level, I now wanted to introduce players to the multiple exits mechanic and teach them how each exit unlocks a unique level, and also introduce players to the flashlight guy enemy. I leave a quote-unquote sneaky note here, but it's really just to let players know there's going to be a choice up ahead of 2 different exits. After this, the level paths start branching out, so I don't have any control over which level players will unlock next. However, I do my best to make sure new enemy and light types are introduced to players at about the same rate, so no matter what path you choose, you aren't overwhelmed by a bunch of new game mechanics all at once. Like I said earlier, doing the sketches of these levels was really fun, but actually seeing them come to life in the game was super cool to see. Here's a few drawings I did of some of the levels to sketch them out versus the final products in the game. One of my favorite levels to make was level 7 with the on-off torches. I wanted it to almost be like a speedrun level where Mr. Cloak would have to dash as fast as he can around different obstacles as the light is right on his tail the whole time. I also thought it was a cool addition that you can see the goal right at the start, so you know exactly where you're heading from the very beginning. A few other sections and levels I really enjoyed making were the graveyards with patrolling lantern guys on levels 4 and 8, as I love the way the shadows are cast off of the graves from lantern guys patrolling around, and there's notes in them that add some lore to the game. The light turret room in level 9 also has a really cool concept because you run through this room initially and see a very obvious exit, but by the time you come back to the room after getting the key, it's much harder to get to the exit as a bunch of light orbs are now bouncing off the walls. I also left a funny note from a previous adventure in this level, saying he tried peeing on the campfire to make it go out, but it didn't work. And lastly, the first room of level 6 was also really fun to make, as players have to look ahead and memorize which spots on the ground are safe, and then run between them while the lights are off. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the way these levels turned out, but the real test is going to be what the playtesters think. So, let's see. I had playtesters fill out a Google form after they finished playing the levels that had them rank which levels they liked from best to worst, and these were the results. I took an average of how each level was ranked from the playtesters, and the more points level has, the better. So, for example, if a level was ranked most enjoyable by a player, then it would receive 10 points, and if a player ranked a level their least favorite, then I would give it only 1 point. The results were generally what I expected. The earlier levels were more simple, as I was introducing game mechanics slowly to players before adding layers of complexity. So even though most players didn't hate these levels, they were generally ranked lower than the later levels. And as the complexity of levels increased with more game mechanics being introduced, players' enjoyment of the levels generally also increased. The one devastating shocker to me though was that players hated the level that I enjoyed making the most, the speedrun level. However, after reading through the feedback, it made sense. The level was a bit too hard, and Mr. Cloak snags on obstacles easier than I would like him to at the moment. So there was a lot less room for error, which doesn't help when you're trying to go as fast as you can, and can easily make more mistakes as a result. It made sense level 8 was the most popular, as the lantern guys through the grave sections was a really fun combo. The level is also pretty large, which I think is an enjoyable part of the gameplay experience, as there isn't just one obvious path for players to take, so players feel like they have more freedom to explore and map out their own routes through the level. I also included questions on the Google form to ask what playtesters liked and what they didn't like about the game, and any suggestions they had to improve gameplay. All the feedback we received was super helpful to us, and one playtester, Earl, even recorded his gameplay and sent it to us, which was super nice of him and helpful to see how he went about tackling the specifics of each level. So, a super big thank you to each and every one of our playtesters. The whole reason I wanted to become a game developer in the first place was because when I was little, I made a small game for my brother for his birthday, and watching him play this thing that I created and actually enjoy it gave me so much happiness and excitement in return that I knew I found something that I really wanted to do with my life. So anyway, this playtest was such a huge deal for me just because I was so excited to see all these different people actually play our game. That being said, we now have a very long list of fixes we need to make to the game, as well as features we want to add before the next Mr. Cloak update. So if you want to be part of how Mr. Cloak grows and evolves, then join us on the Smoke Trail Studios Discord and subscribe to keep following along with the journey of Mr. Cloak. Alright, I need to get back to work, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.